5.
Hello, Griffin Gonzalez. Welcome into another episode of Unpaid Interns. How are you? This is a new change of the game, new face.
This is a new look. I kind of like it. Tamar and Griff back on the scene.
Hello, Griffin Gonzalez. Welcome into
no
another
Austin Render today. Well, we got the both going on at once. All right. Working through the technical.
Good start. Start again.
I'm really stretching out those technical director new skills here. But Tamar, great to see you. Great to be with you. We got a jam-packed episode today. Really excited to talk to the guys we're having on today. 2 guests that you actually found. Tell me a little bit about who's going to be joining us here in a few minutes.
So we got Chase Wales and Mason Burgin. They are the social media coordinators for the Saints and the Pelicans. So we're going to get a little bit of insight into some professional sports, but also I know Chase in particular has worked with Indiana. He's worked with LSU athletics. So we're going to get 2 different perspectives on what life in the social media workforce looks like. So it's different because now that we're in the media, or we're starting to get into media, there's so many new jobs that are popping up. Social media wasn't a thing like 10 years ago. So it'll be interesting to hear from these guys to see what does their job really look like. Social media is work.
Right now during COVID, where it's like social media is the only way you're connecting with fans anywhere right now. So that should be a very interesting conversation. We're going to get to that just about 9 minutes here, but we're going to start off with a few big sports topics on the day, starting off with Patrick Mahomes. Now, Tamar, I know you're a huge Patrick Mahomes fan. Okay, I know you're a big Missouri girl over there. Got paid 10 years, upwards of $500 million. Tamar, is it worth it? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but for a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who has it all, he has the good personality. He's going to make a good face for the program, for the franchise. I think it's worth it, Griffin. Now, it's crazy because he was the youngest NFL MVP to win a Super Bowl last year. That's a huge feat in and of itself. And now going to be one of the highest paid, or the highest paid athlete in professional sports. It's crazy. People are saying, having that conversation, is it worth it or not? But I think because he is that strong personality, he's got the arm, he's made this Chiefs team look really good. I think it's worth it in the long run. What about you?
I think it's so interesting to me. You see him and Lamar Jackson kind of compared in that AFC region, and they're so similar in so many different ways in the way they play, their character, and I do think it's worth it. My question is, how many quarterbacks are going to work off this and say, well, I'm kind of like that, so I need that kind of money. He's taking a significant chunk of that, the Chiefs basically salary cap for the next 10 years. So my question is, how does that shape how the Chiefs kind of build around him, and does it hurt the Chiefs' chances of building around him? And, one thing, Peyton Manning always did was Peyton Manning could have had massive contracts. He chose not to, so they could build around him as a team. And that's the one fear I have for the Chiefs. It's great you have a great quarterback for 10 years, but can you give him enough talent to make him continue that great quarterback play over the next 10 years? So it should be interesting to see. I like it. I think he's a great guy. I love his energy. I love his, just seems like a solid dude, down to earth, and seems like.
Right. And think about it. He'll be 36 by the time he's done with the Chiefs, and seeing what's next for him. That's crazy. Thinking about us right now, we're both in our 20s. Can you imagine 10 years with the same team?
Yeah, we'll be covering hopefully his last Super Bowl at 36 tomorrow. That's by the time this contract is expired. All right, moving on. Big news coming today out of the Ivy League. Usually we don't talk about Ivy League, but we are today because they are going to announce what they're going to do with their fall sports direction. It's like one of the first major announcements coming from fall sports from an individual league that we haven't had that yet. Now, if you look back last March, the Ivy League was actually the first organization, I should say, to cancel their basketball tournament before Big East, before Big Ten, before any of that happened. They canceled before any of the teams got there because of COVID-19. And now they're taking the first step here in the fall sports direction. They're saying maybe a shortened schedule. They're saying maybe spring football, but nothing else. Tomorrow, you're looking at the Ivy League. You're looking at what they're going to do here. They've already taken the forefront earlier this year when this first occurred. Do you think they're going to follow that same path and play it safe rather than sorry?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. The huge discussion right now is, yeah, we're talking about guys getting back to training, especially in football, men's basketball, but I'm not quite sure I just can't answer any of the questions because I don't know what it's going to look like when everyone's back on campus. So I think that's going to be a huge shift in terms of what's going to happen, because once the players and athletes are being exposed to everyone else that's coming back to school, because there's still student athletes, Ivy League, got Big Ten athletes who are going to be exposed to so many different people. And how can you hold these 20-year-olds in close quarters, or keeping them just together? So I'm not quite sure what the decision makers are going to say. I don't know if they can make that call until they can see what it's going to look like when everyone gets back on campus. But going to IU, we got Christian Lander back on campus. We got some of the really important stars coming back. They're trying to get their training in, trying to put in work to strengthen themselves for a season. But I don't know if they can say what's going to happen a couple months from now. And it's actually a month because it's July now. So we're coming back in August.
I think the big thing is just like at the end of the day, I was talking to a bunch of kids last night who go to school all over the country who are just like, take away sports, take away school, like make us go online. We're still going back to college because we have leases. We don't want to live at home anymore. It's like once you get that first taste of not living at home for a few months, you don't want to really give it up. And I think you're going to see that. And kids are just going to go back to college and say, fine, which is a dangerous world to live in, but it's the world we live in indeed. So I think it should be interesting to see it. But how do you tell a bunch of 22 and under-year-olds, hey, we're going to put you in this environment called college. Don't party. Don't go out in social environments. Don't go.
Right.
It's just, you can't, maybe for like a 60% of the team who really wants to lock in and have a season, but there's going to be 40% of the guys who are just going to be like, hey, we still want to go out,
Absolutely.
It is what it is. And, if you lock down an entire team like IU or Ohio State, you still got teams that those teams play that still might not be there. So it's just so many question marks, so many concerns. And
right. We can't even get our country on the same playing field, much less every university. No one has the same protocol. So even if we made that fully unified, maybe that would work, but that's just not going to happen in our country, in our day and age. So, but then we got to talk too a bit on the soccer front. MLS is back tournament postponed. So we got one in particular, FC Dallas, pulled out of the tournament that was going to bring MLS back into our lives. And then the Nashville SC versus Chicago Fire FC game was supposed to be today and was postponed. So Griffin, do you think this is going to be the trend? What's going to be happening?
I sure hope not, but I do think it's definitely leaning towards that than anything else. I look at what is happening with the MLS right now. It's like you have a team held out because, well, no one can be healthy. You're having, just cancellation after cancellation. It's sad, but I think like this is very well what could happen. You could have an NBA team, like just for example, you could have the Pacers. Just, their point guard gets it, and their backup point guard gets it, and then their center gets it, and then it's spreading all over, and it's in a confined space at Disney. So then now the Heat have it. Now the Pelicans have it. Now the Lakers have it. And it's like, this is how I feel like it could very well go. And that's the concern with doing these things in a bubble is, yes, it's good you're in a bubble, so you're not getting the outside stuff. But once that outside stuff is inside, it's really hard to get out. So I think it's a day-by-day process, and I'm glad they're trying to bring sports back. I think they have to. There's a large market there. as far as the sports media landscape goes. At the end of the day, they've had no way of making money for the past 6 months. And all of a sudden there's this built up market for competition. They have to go in on that because at the end of the day, ESPN's job, the NBA's job is to get money from fans watching games. And they haven't had that. So now here it is, all in a, jam-packed 2-month period. So I think
and before we get
back, but it's definitely tough.
Right. And before we get to our guests here in a moment, you mentioned the Pacers, and we can't do this show and then talk about the Pelicans without talking about Victor Oladipo not playing for the Pacers. I think that's a smart call on his choice. I'm not quite surprised, but he will totally be missed by the two of us. Isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely bummed. I'm a Pacers fan all day long. I will admit it on the show. But here's the thing. You know what? Pacers aren't that great of a team. They're going to play 2 weeks maybe. Is it really worth 2 weeks of basketball to get hurt? I mean, crazy. But, you don't risk injury today. Patrick Mahomes just signed a $500 million contract, and I read today that part of that contract is that he can't ride on a jet ski. He can't play basketball. He can't play baseball because if he gets hurt, well, there's $500 million down the drain. So we're going to go ahead and admit our guests now. We're going to let them join in on the Zoom call. We want to get to talk to these guys and get to hear what they have to say. They're joining nice and slowly. There we go. We're going to let them join here. Joining us from, I believe, New Orleans, probably, Chase Wales and Mason Burgin.
Two social media coordinators for the Saints and the Pelicans. So we do got that New Orleans vibe coming in. And Chase actually, will let him speak to it, but he got to work for the Indiana Hoosiers for a year. So we'll speak to that experience as well. And we got to learn a little bit more about Mason.
Well, it says they're joining. The question of whether or not they will join us. Welcome to Zoom. It's just, this happens sometimes. They're definitely trying. They've been in the waiting room and we've admitted them, but we'll see if they actually get in here. There we go. Can you guys hear us? I think they're muted.
Okay, so they're coming in.
They're coming in nice and slow here. Got Chase here. What would we do without a little technical difficulty?
I know. Oh, here we go.
Gentlemen, how we doing?
Good now?
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that.
You guys
No worries.
Well, gentlemen, tell us a little bit. Where are you guys? How you doing? What are you doing? You can update us. Where are you at right now?
Yeah. We are holding it down in New Orleans right now. We're actually roommates, so we're at the same house. Just working from home past few months. Just trying to adjust to the new life.
So tell us about both of you. Take turns. We want to know, where'd you go to school? I gave you a little introduction, Chase. I said that you'd worked for Indiana previously, but so where'd you go to college? Where are you from? And then what's life been like now that you're in the media workforce?
Right. So I grew up, born and raised in Baton Rouge, went to LSU for my undergrad, majored in journalism. My sophomore year, started working in the athletic communications department at LSU. I was one of the student SIDs. Just did a ton of different sports with that, helped out with football, men's and women's basketball, baseball. My primary sports was tennis and women's basketball, so I was the main SID for those. And then after I graduated, started looking around for internships and jobs and stuff. And one of the places I applied to was IU, and they reached out, did a couple interviews there, got the job, and so I was the social media intern at IU for a year, which was actually my first time really going into social media. And one of the places I applied to was IU, actually my first time really going into social media at the IU baseball social, but I helped out with pretty much every other sport. I was really involved with the men's soccer team as well, did football, men's and women's basketball, all that. Then I applied with the Pelicans towards the end of that year, got that job, and I'm going into year number 2 here in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm Mason. For anyone who doesn't know me, I guess you guys good to meet you guys. So I'm from the Nashville area, and then I spent 4 years at Tennessee. Got involved, knew it was a major, flipped to communication studies, but finished a journalism minor, and then got involved in a new social media internship my junior year at Tennessee. So covered mainly men's basketball, and then had a really fun year. My senior year, Tennessee basketball was #1 there for a while. So that was a lot of fun. That's where I really got my hands in social. Covered mainly men's, and then I really fun. So that was a lot of fun. That's where I really got my really started to love it. My senior year, I spent my fall of senior year with the live content correspondent program. So I spent my fall as plugs freelance media people at different NFL teams. So I was one of 2 LCCs for the Titans. So I was spending Saturdays at Tennessee football games and at Titans games, which was super, super fun. It was really crazy and chaotic. But it was a lot of fun to get involved with that. So everywhere I could. And then got in touch with the Saints and loved everything. Everything's worked out so far. And the same as Chase and me, I guess.
All right, so we got some of that. Some of it was cutting in and out, but it sounds like lots of Tennessee, lots of LSU and Indiana stuff. So I gotta ask, since you guys are roommates, you got the LSU connection, you got the Tennessee connection, you also have the Indiana connection. We got to talk about that Gator Bowl. What was that like? Did you guys watch it together? Was there a little rivalry going on? Was there a bet placed on you got to get me the inside look there. What was going on there?
Gator Bowl.
I don't know. Can you clarify?
Like for the IU Tennessee football bowl game this year.
Oh.
Gator Bowl. I'm just curious. If there's no bet, that was fine. I'm just curious if you guys were roommates. Did you guys have anything going on there?
We actually planned.
So the Wi-Fi is really not working in our favor. I'm gonna try and see. Okay, we're having a bit of trouble hearing you from our end. Is there any way?
It wasn't able to work out. Let's see. It wasn't able to work out.
Like it's really good for like 5 seconds and then it gets really bad.
I don't know. On top
You're
of our router, so I'm not sure what you guys.
Oh, the other one.
Is it good now? Or is it still cutting out?
It's still cutting out a bit.
We're trying it on the phone real quick, if that helps.
That helps a little bit.
Perfect. All good.
We'll try it again. So anyway, guys, okay, if you guys don't mind, we're trying to get this show an idea of what different media jobs look like, what different responsibilities include. So if you guys don't mind, walk us through the day-to-day. What does the day-to-day look like of somebody who works for a social media coordinator for a professional sports team?
And we're switching computers. We're going to see if this works. Can you guys see us?
Oh, much better. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Can't trust Chase's laptop here, obviously.
I did the best I could.
All good.
We appreciate the effort, Chase.
All right, there we go.
So were you guys able to hear that last question at all?
A little bit.
little bit. So just kind of walk us through the day to day. What does being a social media coordinator for a professional sports team look like?
Well, if you had asked a couple of months ago, it would have been a completely different answer. But lately, like you mentioned earlier, we're kind of the only access that people have to seeing the team right now. We're not on TV. We're not on, like, there's nothing really new to talk about because they haven't seen the guys. And so they've been back to practice on the Pelican side just this past week. And so no one has seen them all this time unless the guys are posting to social on their own. And so we're kind of the access that they have. And so we have a guy taking photos and videos of practice every morning that he sends to us that we kind of repurpose and post. The guys have been doing like some media availability so the fans can hear from them. They actually are leaving right now to go to Orlando. So we'll do something with that. But before all this started, the day-to-day was just kind of, we'd meet every morning and go over what we needed to do. The guys go out in the community a lot. And so we'll send people to go cover the community events that they do, whether it's with charity or with like local community organizations or something like that. A lot of sponsored stuff that we're responsible for, posting our partners, our corporate partners, their initiatives on social. So we have a lot of meetings about that. Covering game days, kind of game planning, who's going to do what, covering practice every day, covering press conferences every day. You just pretty much wake up every day and expect something different. No 2 days are the same. And then it's crazy when the Pelicans and Saints are going on at the same time. We're responsible for both. So we'll have 1 or 2 Saints games a week, 3 or 4 Pelicans games a week with practice every day. And it's just crazy.
So it's crazy. I was just saying in your introduction before you guys came on, social media is what you're doing. That's your job. That's what you're responsible for. And that wasn't the case 10 years ago. There was no social media coordinator. So how has the job really, or the media market in general, really evolved since even you were in college?
A lot.
Yeah, I think it's definitely been very interesting. I always have, I'm sure you guys can relate to this a little bit, but I always have family members kind of like question like kind of what I'm doing, or like, my grandpa would be like, how's that a job? Like whatever. So it's definitely been interesting kind of like going into it as it's growing. And like I mentioned, like my position at Tennessee, it was like the first year they were like, hey, I think there is a need for someone like to do this. So I think, and I'm sure as a former SID, Chase can kind of understand, but I think we definitely saw this sort of culture of like SIDs sort of being like, all right, well, social media seems like something that we have to take care of, like almost like a requirement. Whereas, especially at the college level now, it's a vital part of recruiting. It's a vital part of marketing the university to everybody. So now it's become this part where we're seeing people and teams invest money into social media. Like the NHL the other day, for example, they announced that they required each team to send a social media correspondent, that each team had to send one. So it's really interesting to see, it become an asset really, both at the collegiate and professional level.
So kind of following up here, you guys in New Orleans get to work with 2 individual athletes kind of on different sides of the spectrum. You have Drew Brees for the Saints, who's kind of that veteran, that elderly side of his career. And then you have the new hype around Zion. What's it like marketing those 2 guys sometimes at the same time? And what differences come with both of those?
With Drew, it's cool because he's been around for so long. He, came over after Katrina, won the Super Bowl. He's one of the most beloved athletes in New Orleans history, I would say. So it's kind of easy with him just because of how universally known and loved he is. And then with Zion, he's still so new here. I think everyone in the city does know who he is and love him, but we're still trying to get to that point to like push the Pelicans. Because here, just call it what it is. It's the Saints town. It's a football town. The Pelicans are kind of, more recently, they've become much more popular, but not quite as popular as the Saints. And so Zion is a big opportunity to kind of sell the NBA here a little bit more.
And even when I was trying to get you on the show on Monday, you're like, well, I can't do Monday because my whole morning is devoted to Zion's birthday.
Yeah, it was his birthday. And so we just had tons and tons of stuff to get out.
So what does that look like? So you have an event, whether you're expecting it or not, are your hours set, or what does a typical day look like?
Everything's definitely set, to a point, to a degree, but it's definitely like half preparation and half adapting. So like we'll come into today with a general schedule, a content calendar of like what we're gonna do. We've got photos of Emmanuel Sanders working out. We've got it's Zion's birthday, but then all of a sudden, bam, so and so we signed so and so, or the Pelicans are on the way to Orlando and Drew Holiday was wearing this crazy outfit. So it's definitely like half prep and half, I would say, like planning around whatever happens and kind of adapting to it along the way.
And then Chase, question geared for you. So you go to LSU, you're a New Orleans guy, you're in New Orleans now covering the Saints and the Pelicans. What's the dream for you? Is this it? Or what, like, is this what you've always dreamed of doing? You had no idea that this could even be an option a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. It's been awesome. Lifelong diehard Saints fan, lifelong diehard Hornets and then Pelicans fan when we switched. I had met our current boss. He's been at the Saints and Pelicans for a long time. And I met him at LSU one time because he went to LSU. And so I met him and got to talk with him. I was like, hey man, I'm coming to work for y'all one day. And IU was kind of a stopgap. I applied when I graduated and didn't get it the first time. So second time around, I applied again and got it. And I was like, hey, you remember that conversation? Like, this is where I've always wanted to be. And so it's a fairly entry-level position I'm at right now, but I would say I'm definitely living the dream with my two favorite teams. It's been really, really cool.
And just
Fabulous.
For those who don't know, how much of what you guys do is actually planned out and meetings and like actually follows like a team focus versus is your own individual creativity, your own individual, like, man, this is a great post. Like I need to go ahead.
Yeah.
How is there?
It's pretty split. A lot of the bigger things, there's a lot of moving parts. You have to get certain things approved by our PR department, certain things approved by corporate sponsorships department. When it's big ticket, big item, things like that, there's a lot of different pieces where you have to get something approved. But if it's just quick, like if something happens during the game, I'm live tweeting a game and I think of a great caption, our bosses reach a level of trust with us where we can just fire something off if we think it'll do really well. The more time we've spent, the more that trust has been built. And so we have we've turned over a lot of the accounts that we just run ourselves. And so there's that level of trust where we can, we know what works and we know what's not going to get us in trouble if we do a certain thing. And we're able to just run with it for the most part.
And do you have either of you have a favorite creative project that you've been able to execute and you've been able to do over the past year?
I know mine is probably, it's been a wild ride, obviously, and like so much has happened. All the in-season stuff was crazy, but once quarantine started, we really got to, have a lot more time on our hands, I guess. And there was one day where we announced that we were going to re-sign Taysom Hill to like a 2-year deal. And it was a Sunday. It was like a Sunday morning, and we announced that. And I literally just had this like urge to like work on something, and I was like, we need to like, Taysom content is always like eaten up by everybody. Everybody loves to hear about Taysom. He's this unique player in the NFL, and I guess saw an opportunity for to make something, I guess. And so I basically spent like my entire Sunday making this video about Taysom re-signing. It was just like a little mini Taysom hype video, and I included like a little clip from The Office at the beginning about Dwight describing himself as a jackhammer and an alpha male. And people really ate it up. It was a lot of fun. I included some Spice Adams in there, which was really fun. But that video did really well. It was a lot of fun for me. I don't know about Chase.
Yeah, that video was really cool. You all should check it out if you get the chance. My favorite thing, honestly, is just working Pelicans games. I do the live tweeting and a lot of the Instagram and Facebook, but just getting to be in that atmosphere and kind of come up with cool captions and when a cool play happens. I don't know. I never saw myself going to be in a position to do something like that. And the fact that I get to do it every single home game is just really, really cool.
So let me ask you guys this. You guys seem very involved. You seem to know the sports landscape. So I want to get your guys' take on this right now. Everything is about to go down with the NBA. You said the Pelicans are on their way. What are your thoughts on that? And or I guess first of all, what are your thoughts of the NBA bubble overall? And then the second part of that question, what content plans do you, if you can just give us a little sneak peek, what kind of content you guys looking to create in that bubble?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I think the NBA, I mean, they're in an unprecedented situation. I think they're doing the best they can with what they've been given. And we're just going to have to see what happens. I mean, I think the plan in place is a solid one if everyone follows the rules and can keep everyone from getting sick. And if we get to see some basketball, if there's no fans, I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it. But I think that the plan in place is one that can work. And then we'll just be able to get to watch it all on TV, which I think is really cool compared to not having a season at all. As far as our content plan, I think, like he mentioned with the NHL, I think the NBA is also requiring each team to send someone for social. And so we have a guy going that will send us photos, videos, stuff like that. And we're just kind of relying on him and the NBA, whoever they provide for content to use however we see fit.
Makes sense. I know we are saying it every single episode. These are unprecedented times. We don't know what's going to happen. But it's really awesome that you guys are here to provide some content, if anything, because that's what people are really craving right now. But what is something, so this is for those watching and listening, for the people who are interested in getting into this industry too, what's something, obviously we know as media students, Griffin and I, that sometimes we plan something and it doesn't really go the way that we hope. Is there been a time that you were planning something or going in one direction and it completely did a 180?
Oh man, you got one. Yeah, I mean, rule number one, like I said, was just applying to jobs. Like you will face, I mean, every case is different, but you will face more times than not rejection from a job that you really wanted. And you just can't let that get to you. You have to apply to anything that's out there as long as it interests you. I wouldn't recommend applying to something you don't care about just for the sake of having a job. But I think between the two of us, we've had some pretty interesting job searches, but we both ended up in a great spot. And so you just kind of have to power through and trust in yourself and trust that you're qualified for the job that you want. And it'll work out for you.
And I think as far as content goes, obviously, I don't think either of us ever had like a huge, like blow up in our face mistake as far as like putting something out. There's definitely little day-to-day things where like I've gotten two guys' names mixed up, early on in the job, like two Saints players or whatever, or things along those lines. But our boss always says like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how you meant it. It just matters how it's interpreted. It just matters how it's interpreted. So I've kind of tried to go with that because it was always frustrating towards the beginning where I had an idea in my head and maybe fans didn't receive it well. And I'm like, oh, well, they just don't understand, blah, blah. But, they're the Saints fans. They are determining how good our content is. And so it's really about catering to them and making sure that, it's being interpreted well. So.
Well, guys, I got to ask, I love hearing from these social media guys because they get the front row seats to pretty much everything, press conferences, to games, to playoffs, so you name it. From you guys personally, I want one Pelicans and one Saints right now. A favorite memory from both that you guys got to experience firsthand.
You're making us just pick one? Let's see.
Whatever you need to get the job done.
I mean, we're in quarantine. I mean, I can go all day. Let's hear it.
I'll give you one. I'll do two, but I'll make it quick. So one, I was still actually at IU. I remember I was working a baseball game that night during the NBA lottery. And when they announced that we got the first pick and everyone knew we would get Zion, I just lost my mind in the press box in the middle of a baseball game. It was so cool. Because we had like a 6% chance of getting the number one pick. Like we were fine with like 5 or 6. That's where we thought we would end up. And then to find out of nowhere that we would get Zion, and I had just accepted the job with the Pelicans. So I was like, this is about to be the best year ever. And then within my first month here, we had just done the trade with the Lakers. We traded AD for Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and Josh Hart, and they had just gotten here, and I was still new on the job. And they sent me to this Burlington coat factory out in like 30 minutes away in New Orleans. And they were like, hey, Lonzo's going to be there. He's going to surprise some shoppers and cover their back to school shopping trips. And so they wanted me to go cover it. And I was like, all right, I'll go out there. And then Lonzo shows up and I go over and talk to him. I'm like, hey, I'm doing social media with the Pelicans. Is that all right if I like get you to take a selfie video real quick? And he was like really cool about it. And I was just following him around the store as he was interacting with these shoppers. Not a huge deal or anything, not the most high profile event. But that was when I was really just like, wow, I really get to do this. Like I just met Lonzo Ball. I'm working for the Pelicans right now, just chilling in a Burlington coat factory. This is going to be a really cool year.
Yeah, I think along those same lines, I would say now we've kind of adjusted to sort of how awesome everything is. Like now we have these interactions and we're almost numb to them, I guess. But at first, my first 2 weeks on the job, I was at Saints training camp, and I, was within arm's reach of Drew Brees, like this quarterback that I've like idolized as a child my entire life. And my hands are like shaking, like trying to hold the phone. I got a really cool video, like my second day at training camp, of this one fan he was getting Drew to sign something, and he just kept screaming, I love you, Drew Brees, I love you. And that video went like really viral. So that was really cool. Like first week on the job moment. I got kind of a funny Pelicans memory. Well, Zion's debut was electric. Four three-pointers in a row. I was like in the media workroom doing stuff, and I was like, he was having not a great first half. I was like, I'll go out there, whatever. And right when I walked out, he hit his first three. And after that, it was just absolutely insane. Hit 4 threes in a row.
Yeah, 18 points in a row in the fourth quarter. The whole arena was on their feet, screaming as loud as they could.
So that was awesome. I know you asked for like one memory. I'm giving you like 5. But last one, so I got to go. It was this, you already know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Chase was scheduled to go to the NBA All-Star game in Chicago, got sick, and I took his spot and got to go, which was insanely awesome.
Funny story. I got sick in Bloomington. I had just gone there because the Pelicans played the Pacers. And so I flew myself out to Indy to work the game, stopped by Bloomington for a couple of days just to visit with some friends, got the flu, flew back, was trying to get better in time to go to Chicago for the All-Star game. And I was just feeling terrible. And so we made a last-minute switch, and Mason got to go.
It was like 48 hours before the All-Star game. They were like, hey, you're going. And I like got to go on the team plane there, which was just absolutely like mind-blowing the entire time. It was freezing up there, and I was having to like Uber all around to all these events. I followed Brandon Ingram around on a shopping spree in Adidas, and it was absolutely crazy. But stuff like that, where it's just fast-paced and awesome, is what makes the industry awesome, I would say.
Man, Bloomington.
That stinks. He talks about how awesome it was all the time, and I wish I could have gotten to go, but things happen.
And you both are so young that, sorry, Griffin, you both are so young that you'll have so many experiences down the road too.
For sure. That's the hope.
Was the time worth it compared to the All-Star game? I do have to ask.
You said was what worth it?
Chase, was your time in a few days in Bloomington at least worth it?
Worth missing the All-Star game?
I'll say, yeah. It was good to see everybody. And it was actually the basketball game that Bobby Knight came back. So that was cool to see.
So, yeah.
And then we beat the Pacers the next night, which is always good. And then from that week on, I was just miserable. So it was good to go. I would have liked to go to Chicago again, but I don't regret going to Bloomington. It's always good to see everybody there.
Bloomington, LSU, so you both. And then Mason, you went to UT Knoxville, right?
I did. Go Vols.
So what's the difference between covering, because you both covered college teams and you were both in that college landscape, and moving to the professional sports? Is there a major difference? Obviously it's more individualized in the pros. So what's the difference between those two?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is everything at Tennessee is it's very brand, or everything at the college level is very brand based, I would say. So like I mentioned earlier, like it's very recruiting centered. You know, we're trying to sell Tennessee every day. We're trying to sell LSU every day to kids. We're trying to, you know, we'll make videos of just the campus or whatever and be like, look how awesome this is. We'll send those to football players, basketball players, whatever. Whereas I would say the NFL and NBA are much more personality based. So, you know, I would mainly, Saints fans are Drew Brees fans. They're Michael Thomas fans. They're Alvin Kamara fans. Pelicans fans are Zion fans, more so than Saints or Pelicans fans. So that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind for me, is trying to sell these awesome like personalities that we have now, as opposed to the college level, I guess.
Yeah. For me, working at the college level, it just kind of, you have to do a little bit of everything. Like obviously LSU football is huge and that's where a lot of our effort went to. But when you're doing communications or doing social media at a college level, you have to cover every sport. And so I'll go out, cover a tennis match or a golf match or a soccer match, and then sometimes 2 or 3 different sports in the same day. And so I think at the professional level, it's good, you know, waking up every morning knowing that I'm just covering basketball today, or I'm going to practice, we have a game tonight, and that's all I'm focusing on. I liked doing a lot of different sports, but I think focusing more on one thing is a little bit more productive, in my opinion.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, guys, a last kind of professionalism question for you. For any of our viewers who are at home thinking this is what they want to do, this is something they want to get into, what skills are needed to do your job well?
I mean, when you're in social, you are a little bit of everything. You're a photographer, videographer, copywriter. You have to really know social media and how to word things the right way. You have to know how to work really well with other departments. Like I said earlier, you have to work closely with PR and corporate partnerships just to make sure everything looks good. Grammar is huge. Know your grammar so you don't have typos, because that's the worst feeling when you see something wrong in a tweet and you have to delete it and start over. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Be as willing to learn as possible. I know when I started, I had no photography skills whatsoever, but we have a lot of very talented photographers, including Mason in our organization, that I learned from. So if you don't know how to do something very well, don't let that hold you back. Always be available to ask questions and learn as much as you can.
I kind of think he nailed it. I mean, like you said, a little bit of everything. It's definitely a very personable industry. So you have, I think, being able to, you know, connect with people is obviously a huge thing. And in college, that was huge for me, was just trying to meet as many people as possible in the industry and being able to talk to people online or in person or whatever. Just connecting with people around the industry. It's huge to know as many people as possible. But also, you know, just being able to be on camera, maybe we know people that have to do that sort of thing. But I think Chase nailed it in terms of, you know, photography, video, a good understanding of the culture, and like you said, and knowing kind of what's going on in sports is huge as well, because you can be, you know, an extremely good photographer, but if you don't know who to take pictures of or what the storylines are, then it's not much use to the team. So
very fair, and that's exactly what we're learning at Indiana. That's exactly what a lot of our guests have been instilling in us, is ask the right questions, and it's about connections. And this is fantastic that we get to do something like this, especially in a time when there's not much content going on. But yeah. Straying away from the professional questions, you're in Bloomington. What are you getting for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Breakfast, I would have to say Village Deli. Me and all the other interns would eat there like once a week. I would always get the chocolate chip pancake that's like massive and you can never eat the whole thing. That was my favorite breakfast spot. For lunch, I feel like everyone has probably said Buffalo's, but that's just the place you have to go. Get some wings or a burger. Very, very good. Or the $2 grilled cheese at Roy's on Tuesdays. That was always my favorite. And then dinner, I had the misfortune, I only was there for a year. I didn't get the full 4 years at IU. So I don't think I hit up every single spot that you have to eat at while you're there, but I got to go with the Tap. Trivia nights, they have a great menu. Tap fries versus Nick's fries is one of the ultimate food battles of our generation. I got to go with Tap fries on that one, though. That was probably my favorite spot.
Hold on.
He's upset.
Just stirred the pot there. All right, we're going.
Look, I love Nick's. They bring this huge bucket full of fries, and it's beautiful. But
I'm just asking for the fans at home who are going to be livid with you for choosing that choice.
Right.
I just need you to back it up a little bit more. I need a more.
They give you the 4 different dipping sauces, the different cheese dipping sauces. The spices that they put on it is, I'm rethinking now because Nick's also had really good spice on it.
See?
And they have a special sauce too.
I know.
But you can be different.
Maybe
it's
I just
okay.
have like fonder memories of eating at the Tap than I did at Nick's, and that's influencing my decision.
It's nostalgia.
Yeah, it's because I would go there for trivia every week. Always a good time. I'll call it.
Mason, you're gonna have to be the judge now. Have we convinced you to go to Bloomington?
I need to make the trip. I know we were talking earlier about how we have a common hate for Kentucky, so maybe I'll have to make a trip for Indiana. I don't know. IU basketball games sound like they're electric. So
they're wild.
I've seen the facility. I've seen pictures and videos of the facility and stuff, and it looks awesome. So I'll have to make the trip.
You gotta, if you're a basketball fan at all. I mean, we're both biased, but you gotta check out Assembly Hall. Oh yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's about all the time we had for you guys today. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for sharing your insight. If I can get one last question in, though.
Yeah.
Any parting words of advice, anything you guys have that you would recommend to the younger generation, the next social media managers of tomorrow, for what they can do to better prepare?
Networking is huge. Get as many people in your corner as you can. I know personally, every single job I've gotten since college has been through the help of a guy that I worked with at LSU who just knows an insane amount of people in the social world. And he has been really, really helpful, kind of helping me get my foot in the door. So anytime you go to a networking event, anytime you meet someone somewhere, anytime you add someone on LinkedIn, stay in touch with them. Ask them for any advice. Don't ever be afraid to reach out to people through Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, even if you have no clue, if you've never met them before. Just have as many people in your corner as possible and make sure that they believe in you and that you believe in yourself.
Inspiring words from Chase Wales. I think mine can kind of be summed up. I always try to think, I always try to be the employee I would want to have. So I try to envision myself sort of as an overseer and try to imagine, what would I want my Pels and Saints social media guys to do or how I'd want them to act. And so I always try to be a yes man. In college, I got one of my gigs was a photographer. That was like my first sideline gig at Tennessee football. I'd never been a photographer. It was much more comfortable in video. And I was like, whatever, this sounds awesome. I'm going to try it. I'm going to suck at it for a long time. And slowly I'm going to get better and better at it. So I would say definitely just being a yes man and trying to do whatever I can to work my butt off every day, whether it takes more hours than it should, kind of just going that extra mile whenever I can and being, the employee I would like to have is kind of the mindset I carry into it, I guess.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for both the great advice and for sharing your stories. Sorry for the technical difficulties at first. I'm so glad that we figured that out.
That was all Chase's fault. So you guys don't have to apologize.
Well, we got you for a solid amount of time. So we appreciate your time so much. I hope you have a good rest of your summer and hope that things start getting back to normal soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all. It's been fun.
Thanks, guys.
Go Pels.
Two very interesting guys, to say the least. It felt like we were in their apartment with them almost. It felt like we were just kind of chilling there.
We were the third and fourth roommates.
Yeah, I felt like we could have gone splitsies on a 4-bedroom there. But no, in all seriousness, I think you and I both know, like, that's not our, we're not social media people. But I think they made it like, you know, it's such a creative niche and it's such a very interesting niche. It was good to hear their take on that, I think.
And it's important to know what's out there. The media industry is always, always changing. And that's what they teach us in school. We are learning a bunch of things, but even now we're talking about the esports industry. So it's social media and esports are the two new fields, I would say, that are really emerging at the college level. And if you're getting into sports in any capacity, you got to know how to do social media. And there is an art to it. So you can't sell it short. I do have to give a shout out because we were talking a lot about the Pelicans, but our good friend Blake Ahern, who was the head coach for the Austin Spurs, Austin and I interviewed him a couple weeks ago. He accepted a position as an assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. Wow. Really big deal for Blake. So I really needed to give him the shout out in here because we were talking so much NBA, but that's just a piece too. But Griffin, this has been so fantastic. I'm so excited that we've been able to do this together.
Oh yeah, great show, great show. We'll be actually be back for more on Friday. Bart Fox will be joining the Unpaid Interns to give his perspective on sports media and more on that coming Friday. So be sure to join us then, 11 a.m. Eastern, same time as usual for tomorrow's show. I've been Griffin Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time here on Unpaid Interns.